Guys, the media reports coming out of Israel have been a dizzying blur of half-truths, misportrayals, and in some cases, outright lies. There has never been a better time to sit down, take a deep dive in, and get to the bottom of what's really going on. I'm Ben, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, if you like this content, if you're liking the 5 shows coming to you every single week, don't hesitate, if you have not already, to click the subscribe button underneath the videos. Click the little bell button next to it so that you can get notified whenever we post a new video to our channel. Feel free to take these videos, share them with a friend, a neighbor, a family member, complete random stranger, somebody you love or someone you hate. And don't forget to leave us a comment underneath to let us know how we're doing, or to just engage in the conversation. Let us know the things you're seeing on the news and how you see them inside of Israel. Today, I want to break the news down for you because the news cycle inside of Israel is quite frankly, kind of a mess, and it's all over the place, and it's very difficult to understand what's going on. There's kind of 2 different categories that we're looking at with news inside of Israel. One is on the political front. As I'm sure you're well aware, the government of Israel is pushing through judicial reform to reform the current Supreme Court system inside of Israel to make it similar to the way other democracies run. The Supreme Court inside of Israel has held unprecedented power within the government of Israel, which has caused all kinds of complications over the years. And the conservative government that's in now is in the process of trying to reform that to make more of a balance of power between the legislature and the executive branch and the judiciary branch. And because of that, they do have a lot of support inside of Israel, but there also is backlash. There's a lot of protests and riots and all kinds of things going on. That's one side of the news category. The other side is the terror wave that's been going on in Judea and Samaria. And I want to start this segment with reading an article from the Times of Israel about a wedding. And in this article, it starts at the top. It says, Mayan Rockland was preparing for laughter and dancing on Monday evening. The Jerusalem resident who had grown up in West Hartford, Connecticut, was a few short minutes away from marrying her fiancé, Ariel Lewis. But before heading to the chuppah, Rockland, an IDF combat veteran who doesn't hide her passion for Israel, took a moment to pray. I prayed that everyone who was coming would arrive safely and get back home, she told the Times of Israel on Wednesday. And my prayer under the chuppah was that there would be no more bereaved families in Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. Scrolling down a little bit here, it says the night before the wedding was when the Yaniv brothers from Har Barucha were killed in Chawara. And so that's why she was praying that prayer. So this is like the third paragraph down. It says, as he emceed the ceremony, the bride's younger brother Akiva searched the crowd for his best friend, who had flown in from the U.S. to be at the wedding. He assumed that Ilan Ganeles, I think is how you pronounce it, Ilan, who had grown up with the Rocklands in West Hartford, was dealing with a flat tire or some other inconvenience. If something mattered, he would be the first one there, Akiva said. So when I did not see him present during the chuppah, I got a little concerned. Ilan was indeed killed in a terrorist attack, and he was killed on the way to the wedding. This is what Justin talked about in his show a few days ago. This was the man that was killed. He was American, and he had flown to Israel specifically for his best friend's older sister's wedding. This is the face of terrorism. You can see the headlines on the news. You can see, the CNNs and the BBCs and everyone else commenting on, oh, it was a tit for tat, and he was killed because of A, B, and C, and this happened and that happened. But terrorism has faces. The victims of terrorism have parents. They have best friends. They have sisters of best friends who are getting married. And I just kind of want to take a moment to appreciate that, to stop and realize what's going on, to kind of take a step back from the craziness that's been happening in the media cycle, and to just realize that real people, real Jews, are being killed. They're being killed for one reason and one reason alone, and that they are Jews who dare to live in the land of Israel. They're Jews who dare to live in the land promised to them by God, promised to them to Abraham, promised to Isaac, promised to Jacob, given where God took the people of Israel out of Egypt, led them through the wilderness for 40 years with splitting the Red Sea, with giving the law, giving the commandments, the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai, and bringing them to the land of Israel. This is a land that King David strengthened, that Solomon expanded, that this is the land where Jesus lived and walked. And this is the land that the Jews were expelled from in a horrible war soon after the time of Jesus. And this is the land that God promised he would bring them back to. And Jews are living on that promise. Jews are picking up on those prophecies that God made and saying, yes, I will go. I will go back to this barren and largely deserted land, largely expansive, almost deserts, almost wastelands, and going back and saying, I will replant vineyards. I will replant olive trees. I will build a home. I will take out a loan that I cannot afford for a house that is way too expensive. That could be torn down by the Supreme Court of Israel. I will put my family in danger to fulfill these prophecies, to fulfill the words that God spoke. I will go. And these people went. And these people came. And they've been here. And this is the price that they pay. This is the price that they pay. They are murdered simply for being Jews who dare to live in Judea, in the land of Israel. And Ilan was an Israeli. He served in the IDF, and he went to America to pursue a university degree, I believe with the intention of coming back after he finished his degree. Flew over to Israel for his best friend's wedding, his best friend's sister's wedding, and was killed. On the way to the wedding, pulled up to an intersection and was shot by a Palestinian terrorist. I'm going to play a video here you can see of the terrorist being captured by the IDF. They were able to hunt him down, thankfully, in a refugee camp, the Aqabat Jabr refugee camp, close to Jericho. And they found him, and it was 2 terrorists, mainly, possibly a third. They ended up in the scuffle that happened when they tried to arrest them. One of them was killed, and 2 more were taken into custody. Guys, with these attacks happening, and increasingly as the media and as the world and international governments come down on Jews for daring to live in Judea and Samaria, understandably, a lot of these guys are starting to feel more and more alone, as if the international community doesn't care at all. And if they do care, it's a very, very negative way. And right now, more than ever, it's extremely, extremely important to come to the land of Israel and show your support in a tangible way. April 17th through May 1st, we have a team of volunteers joining us in Israel for one mission and one mission alone: to plant trees in Judea and Samaria, Israel's biblical heartland. For 2,000 years, the area of Israel has been lain desolate and barren. And even though groups have planted trees in the rest of Israel, for over the last 100 years, Judea and Samaria has been neglected due to political sensitivities. No more. Our mission is to plant 20,000 trees in the biblical heartland this year, and this 2-week volunteer trip will play a huge role in that. Join us for a hardworking, unforgettable volunteer experience in Israel's heartland this spring. You may be surprised at how much of a trip like this can change your life. To find out more, go to serveisrael.com/volunteer or click the link in the description below. Don't wait though, because time is running out to sign up. If you love God and Israel and are ready for a hard-working adventure in the land of Israel, sign up for our tree planting volunteer program at serveisrael.com/volunteer. or click the link below. Israel's desolate mountain region needs you to play your part in bringing them back to life. Beyond that terrorist attack, the media cycle still has not cooled from what has happened in Hawara. Then I want to break this down again. I know we've talked about this a couple times in the show. We just did that mini documentary where we went down and kind of showed what happened in Hawara, but I want to break it down again because this is very confusing. The plethora of different versions of this story that have come out on international media inside of Israel, stuff from foreign officials, stuff from politicians inside of Israel, generals inside of Israel, has been very confusing and very varied. No two stories seem to match. But fortunately, we have guys on the ground. We literally live in Har Bracha, directly right above Hawara. We drive through Hawara every single day, basically. If we want to go anywhere outside of Har Bracha, you drive through Hawara. And so we had guys on the ground when this happened, on the ground after it happened, and are able to go back and see the damage of what happened from this horrible backlash of the Israelis, this terrible pogrom, as some people are calling it, inside of Hawara. And we're getting claims from the international media along these lines. I'm going to read this article from the BBC because this kind of does a good job of summing up what we hear from all kinds of different news stories. Homes in Hawara are charred black alongside burned out cars cloaked in a layer of ash. The air tastes acrid as people speak of the night their town burned. Residents told the BBC a mob had gone on an hours-long rampage armed with iron bars and rocks before torching buildings, cars, and trees. On Sunday, the Palestinian town was subjected to one of the worst cases of mass Israeli settler violence in years, hours after 2 settlers were shot dead by a Palestinian gunman. The settlers attacked our houses, they smashed the windows and burned my nephew's cars and trucks. They tried to break into my car showroom and set it afire, said Abdul Nasser al-Junaidi, speaking outside his home. So I kind of put together a summary from a lot of these articles of the damage, of the supposed damage that happened during this riot after the killing of the 2 brothers from Har Bracha. So this is a supposed list. 1 Palestinian killed, many more wounded, dozens of houses burned, dozens of cars burned, windows smashed. You can walk down the length of the town and the destruction is everywhere. Some are calling it a pogrom, and some are even comparing it to Kristallnacht. So what really happened? You've seen from a couple of our shows, we've kind of broken this down, but I'm going to go over it one more time. This is a timeline as best as I could reconstruct it, based on direct testimony from our guys on the ground and news stories and official sources and all that kind of thing. So that afternoon, the attack happened, where a Palestinian rammed the 2 brothers from Har Bracha, rammed their car, hopped out of his car, drew a handgun, and shot them both point blank and killed them in execution-style murder. Directly after that, the military and police obviously responded to the situation, along with first responders and all that kind of thing, which kind of just stopped traffic in the town. Hawara, for those of you who have never been through it, is a very narrow lane of kind of like a bottleneck little highway surrounded by shops and 3-story apartment buildings and that kind of thing. So apparently, with the traffic that was caused by shutting down the roads to respond to this incident, young Palestinian guys got on top of the 3-4-story buildings and started chucking rocks from the buildings down on Jewish cars. which is extremely dangerous, extremely dangerous. You hear in the media all the time, like, oh, they just threw rocks or they just threw stones. When you're throwing rocks down from 3-4-story buildings, I mean, sometimes they're huge rocks. It can be lethal. One of those coming through your windshield, hitting your little kid, like that can be very serious. And apparently, from what I've heard, I don't think the military took direct action in stopping these rock attacks. And so some young guys from local communities kind of took things into their own hands and started throwing rocks back at the Palestinian youth, and it sort of started this like back and forth kind of tussle between young guys, young hotheads. And so as the sun went down, you sort of had two different situations going on. One, you had a couple Jewish hotheads, young guys from local communities who had had enough, who kind of ended up in this back and forth with hotheads from the Arab communities who were chucking rocks at each other. Some guys, we don't really know who, I guess, lit a Arab junkyard on fire, which is all the photos we see of burnt out cars in Hawara, where they burned 30 or so cars that were already in bits and pieces and rusted out junk that they have all over Hawara. Some also, probably more of the young guys, lit a couple of brush fires throughout Hawara, like piles of brush here and there, which kind of scorched some of the outsides of some of the houses. And also, I believe one house was set on fire on the inside, and no one really knows exactly how that happened. As far as the Palestinian being killed and the other Palestinians injured, normally, if there is a Palestinian killed by the military, in some kind of an incident, like we discussed last week when the military went into Nablus or Shechem to arrest some terrorists that had holed up there, when some of those terrorists were killed, there was a huge funeral. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of young men running through the streets carrying these bodies of the terrorists. There was a big deal. They posted their names, their faces, their pictures all over social media. This time, supposedly, there was a Palestinian killed. Supposedly. But as far as I've seen, there's been no name, no photo, no funeral. The military has not been able to track down who did it or how it happened. Nothing. There's an ongoing investigation by the police inside of Israel. But the police or military, I'm not sure exactly who's handling that. But so far, as I'm aware, there's been no actual leads, which makes one wonder, with the departure from precedent to not have any public information posted by Arabs, by friends, by family, by people who are involved on the internet, is very suspect to me. Very suspect that this entire thing was made up. It's possible it's real. It's possible somebody was killed. And if that's true, whoever did it will be brought to justice, no doubt. As to that, the Israeli court system is very good at bringing people to justice. I'm sure it will come out whether eventually, whether it was just a fraud story, or if it actually happened, if it happened in self-defense, or if it was some form of a premeditated murder. As far as the injuries go, most of the reported injuries are from smoke inhalation, which is laughable if you've ever been in Hawara before, that people would be suffering from smoke inhalation, because fire is nothing new to Hawara. They burn trash on the streets all the time. There's brush fires going all the time. Just kind of saying there that a few brush fires in Hawara suddenly causing all these cases of smoke inhalation is also pretty ridiculous, if you ask me. So, altogether, our guys were just down at Hawara the other day and did a detailed tour looking specifically for damage. All these claims from the media that we read through. The one Arab killed. Yes, no, maybe, possibly, seems suspect. Many more wounded. Yeah, there probably were a couple wounded. Nothing really confirmed for sure. Most of it probably kind of made up. Dozens of houses burned. As far as our guys on the ground could see, there was one to two houses that had black soot on the side of them. And these are stone houses. That's something that could be completely cleaned. But from a brush fire or a car burning next to the house, they had black soot on the side. And there was one house where the front rooms had been burned out. So we're talking about one house basically burned. You can walk down the length of the town and the destruction is everywhere. Absolutely not. You can walk down the streets of Hawara right now, and things look very, very similar to what they looked like a week ago. You might see a few more burned out cars. You might see a few buildings with blackened sides. If you look real hard, you'll see that one house where the front room was burned out. But that's about it. It's about all you're going to see. Was it a pogrom? Absolutely not. Was it Kristallnacht? Absolutely, absolutely not. No possible comparison to Kristallnacht whatsoever. It was mainly Israeli families coming down as a sign of strength to say, we're here, we're going to live here, you're not going to terrorize us, a direct response to terror. Terror which is for the express purpose of spreading fear and terror inside of Israeli communities. The Israeli families came down and said, we're not afraid and we're not leaving and we're here to stay. And a few Israeli hotheads did get a little bit out of hand. They smashed some windows, they burned a house, and they set some cars on fire, and that's about it. And I do want to briefly mention, we're kind of running out of time, but I want to briefly mention why the Israelis are so fed up with Hawara. You saw a comment this week from Bezalel Smotrich in the Netanyahu's government, who basically said that Hawara should be razed, should be destroyed by the Israeli government. And it sounds really harsh because a terrorist attack happened there, but then you say, what does that have to do with the rest of the citizens of Hawara? And I believe Josh did a really good job breaking this down on his show yesterday, where he showed the involvement of the larger involvement of Palestinian communities in these attacks. But the Israeli settlers that live close in the settlements, in the communities around Hawara, are absolutely fed up with Hawara. Rocks are thrown at Israeli cars all the time. I mean, I'll play this video for you right here. The uncle of the brothers from Har Bracha, the Yaniv brothers, the uncle had rocks thrown through his windows from atop the buildings just like 2 days after the attack happened. I mean, take a look at that. There is a reason why the IDF have not been able to catch this terrorist yet that committed the attack against the Yaniv brothers. Because the population of these Arab towns will very often absorb these terrorists and give them shelter. Back when I believe it was Yehuda Guetta, the yeshiva student that was killed several years ago at the Tepuch Junction, where a terrorist pulled up in his car and shot him just on the side of the road, point blank, and killed him. There was a notice sent out by the government, by the PA, by Fatah, sent out to Arab residents that said, please delete any security camera footage you have from your stores or buildings like in all local communities. Please delete any videos you have on your phone so that the Israelis can't take them in tracking down this terrorist. And there's open celebration inside of Hawara, inside of Nablus Shechem, inside of these other Arab villages around. There's open celebration of handing out dates and candies and drinks and all kinds of things when a Jew is killed. So kind of the better question is, why do more riots from surrounding community members in places like Hawara not happen more often? I know the media is going absolutely berserk right now that Jews would dare to come down and would dare to burn a house and would dare to set cars on fire and would dare to light a couple of brush fires and would dare to stand in Hawara and say this land is ours, because Jews don't normally do that in the land of Israel. It kind of proves how lopsided this entire quote-unquote conflict is. And this BBC article that we read, I kind of want to close with something that I thought was really, really ironic. On Sunday, the Palestinian town was subjected to one of the worst cases of mass Israeli settler violence in years. Guys, I think the BBC kind of inadvertently just admitted the truth in that these settlers, these quote-unquote settlers that, according to the propaganda that permeates the internet these days and permeates mainstream media these days, these settlers that shoot random Arabs all the time, that, burn down Arabs' houses for no reason and demolish them for no reason, settlers that, have horns and eat Palestinian children for breakfast or whatever else other crazy propaganda we have, that just permeates the internet. This is, according to the BBC, the worst case of mass Israeli settler violence in years. I think that absolutely speaks for itself. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.